Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining in today. Do appreciate your time and joining. I know everybody has a lot of things going on, and we do appreciate it. Today, we're going to be talking about what is TWAIN Direct for scanning and why it should matter to you. I'm going to start off with a little bit of a presentation here, and then I'm going to hand this off to Kevin Neal with P3ID, who's also a TWAIN Working Group member. And for any technical questions or any questions, we do ask that you table it to the end, and Mark McLaughlin with Kodak Alaris will be able to assist with any technical responses, as he's our lead technical chair on the TWAIN Working Group. Like I said, we do ask that everybody table the questions towards the end, and we'll be more than happy to answer it. So we're going to start off today really with just giving you a high-level overview of what TWAIN Direct is. We're not going to kind of get too technical in terms of how it operates, but really it's all about what it is in a nutshell, and why it should matter to you. And that is what I'll be talking about, and of course why it matters to me, since TWAIN Direct has actually been something I've been leading up for quite some time, both with the TWAIN Working Group as well as Panasonic. So really, at the end of the day, what is TWAIN Direct, right? So it's pretty simple. TWAIN Direct is really a zero footprint image acquisition protocol to drive network scanning devices via web or local area network. What that really means is there's no more drivers. There's no more TWAIN drivers, that you're used to traditionally. What it really is a plug and play protocol for scanning devices. So it's driverless. The nice thing about it is it does create universal hardware compatibility. So if you're a software vendor or even an OEM, you don't have to worry about whether or not the software is going to work with the hardware or how well it's going to work. The nice thing about this is it really is a universal operation and how it, both identifies with the hardware as well as how it scans with the hardware. The other nice thing about TWAIN Direct is that it uses PDF raster or single page PDF raster. So instead of getting a raw image data and then having software recompile it into a document, you're actually creating individual PDF page images. And then you can use any kind of library, a PDF library, to compile that all into a multi-page document. The nice thing about TWAIN Direct, which is probably one of the biggest hurdles that I would say most OEMs have today, is it supports any platform. It doesn't matter the device. It can work on Windows, it can work on iOS, it can work on Android. The nice thing about this is you can build it in the cloud, and really at the end of the day, all you need is a web browser, which any operating system device out there has, right? If you're using Android, if you're using iOS, if you're using Linux, it all has a browser that you can actually access your application from. The nice thing about that, there's no additional application development to drive the device hardware. So in a nutshell, what you're really looking at here is an overview of the scanning process. What you have here is what it looks like with TWAIN Direct. Could be local or in the cloud. For illustration purposes, this is actually showing TWAIN Direct in the cloud. What you have here is your scanner. Your area network here could be connecting over a WAN, over the internet, obviously. And then you can also have your capture application built into the same area where your TWAIN Direct is. At the end of the day, what you're doing is you're pulling a scan from your scanner, from your client, whether that be a tablet, PC, or a computer, laptop, etc. And then you're just going to put your documents in. Once the documents are ingested, it's going to stream a single page PDF raster file to TWAIN Direct server. That's going to compile that for you. And then what you're going to do is you're going to get your document in on your device, whether that be through your application or depending on how you configure it, it could actually just send you an actual PDF document at the end of it. So why should TWAIN Direct matter to you? And this is really where I'm spending the larger part of the focus here. Because, I know a lot of you have seen TWAIN Direct already promoted. We've officially launched it just close to about a year and a half ago. And we're gaining some momentum on it. But I think some of the more important things is why it's important to companies or developers is really the future of businesses in the cloud. If COVID-19 has taught us anything, is centralizing our operations for remote workforce. And more companies today have taken this opportunity to no longer have an office space. So, with that, not only do you need to be able to access everything remotely, your applications have to be agile enough and easy to access. So, really, what you're doing is creating adoption of more cloud applications, and this is growing year over year. So, this is an important point because more and more, and if you're using Office 365 or SharePoint, it's a perfect example of just a simple technology that we're so used to that's migrated in the cloud. Even me as an employee of Panasonic, our Office 365 server is not sitting in a data center in our facilities. It's actually hosted by Microsoft. So I mean, really, if you think about it, this is really where all applications are being driven. Now, what you lose now is the ability to connect to hardware if it's remote or if you're a remote worker. So really, it's all about adding that flexibility. So the next picture I'm showing you here is basically what your classic network infrastructure looked like, maybe a year or 5 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, right? You had a server, it was connected to the internet, all your client PCs are connected to it. You might have been VPN into the network if you were remote. But today, your network infrastructure is all over the internet. Your hardware could be connecting directly to the cloud as an IoT device. Your laptops, your tablets, everything's being accessed, if 4G or 5G, depending on how you're set up. But really, this is how the network layout has changed over the years. Sorry. So really, what were your computing devices 5, 10 years ago? You were really limited to a desktop PC, maybe a laptop. Your operating systems were really just Windows, maybe iOS or Linux. If you're an enterprise organization, you might have been running Linux or, you know, as a possibility, or Unix. iOS maybe not so much, but Windows was probably and still is the primary operating system out there for organizations. However, today Windows still exists, right? But iOS has grown. People have iPads, or if you've got, an Android device, whether it's your phone, whether it's a tablet, Linux could still be used as well. I know financial companies run on Linux or some derivative of that. And one of the biggest challenges between all of that is trying to maintain how to standardize support for all that, right? Before, one or two operating systems was simple, but you can have up to four, maybe five different operating systems out there to support. That becomes a challenge, especially if you're a hardware OEM for a document scanner, because generally we provide probably two types of drivers, maybe a Linux driver. So Windows is always the best supported. iOS has limited support. It may not support all models. Linux is also same. You might have a sane driver or something along those lines. But at the end of the day, it's very limited on what you can do, especially over a Windows or maybe even an iOS TWAIN driver or ICA driver. So really, how does any business today support any of those platforms efficiently without creating excessive development or relying on the hardware OEM to even develop it for you, right? And really, the key here is your browser. Every operating system has some kind of browser, and you have your assortment of browsers. It could be Chrome, it could be Firefox, it could be Edge or Safari, all of which are easily accessible to obviously any application in the cloud. And by moving your applications to the cloud and accessing from the browser, you're eliminating any additional software development. You don't need to create a separate app for an iOS device or an Android device. By using the browser, you're accessing your system in real time without any additional support. That's a great thing, especially when you're creating efficiencies. Now, many businesses today are not suited to support that quite yet. This is a transformation that is required. However, this is where the future of business is going to go. There's no more in-house servers that are going to exist down the road. Everything's going to be in the cloud. Everything's going to be accessible, whether it's through a mobile phone, whether it's through a tablet, or even a PC over the internet. Right? So applications and technology have transformed so much on how we access information in applications. However, what hasn't changed in all nearly 15, maybe even 20 years is you still need a device, you still need a USB cable and some form of a computer, mostly running Windows, maybe iOS or Linux. But for the most part, I would say 85 to 90% of document scanning is still performed on a Windows-based PC. However, developers, businesses, that might not be what their backend is. They might be running Unix. They might be using Linux. They might be using something else. And these are all different things that are not supported today and become a burden for IT managers to even support. So this is the nice thing about TWAIN Direct is that you can allow that development to happen easily, and you don't have to create additional software for a client. This is the beauty of it, is that you can access your device and scan and do everything right from a browser, which is great because a browser is never going away. It'll version up, it'll never go away. You'll sure you there'll always be something there to browse you and gather your application, right? So, nice thing about TWAIN Direct and how it's going to help your business process. Like I said, TWAIN Direct is a build once, support all device technology. It doesn't matter anymore what device you're using or what brand you're using. It's very agnostic to that. It's TWAIN Direct is also a RESTful API and a specification. It's not an actual piece of software we offer. It's something that you have to develop and implement into your application. However, we have sample code on the TWAIN working group. We have it for mainly all modern coding languages, including some legacy. It really all depends on what you want to support. TWAIN Direct can also support both local network applications or cloud-based applications. So if you're not ready to move to the cloud, but you want to put everything within your local area network, you can. The difference will basically be authentication and security on how that's managed. Of course, if you're using the cloud, and Kevin will actually elaborate to some of this as well during his portion, is that it supports modern day security protocols, especially in this day and age where security is probably the most number one concern in any business, especially when you're moving to the cloud. All your devices are now network accessible. And when I say that, it doesn't necessarily mean that all devices are network connected directly. However, we do offer a bridge or a sidecar, which allows even legacy devices to be supported and put on the network, which is something that you don't get every day on the document scanner out of the box. The nice thing is you eliminate your dependency on OEM supported devices and operating systems. So like I said, every manufacturer probably supports one version of either Windows or iOS, maybe Linux tops. But if you're using something else or some new operating system or Chromebooks come out, you know what? Now you can support it with TWAIN Direct and not have to develop anything specific. It can support multiple operating systems throughout the organization. Also, you eliminate the need to test physical software and driver installation application. The nice thing about TWAIN Direct is when you have your scanner that supports it, you plug it into your network, you configure an IP address, some simple URL information, and at that point, your application should be able to browse, identify, locate the device, and begin using it immediately. Now, not every scanner is built the same. Some scanners might have a feature over another. The nice thing about TWAIN Direct is that there's a standard set of protocols for acquiring images. If the hardware doesn't support a particular feature, it doesn't crash or stop or prevent you from scanning. It'll continue scanning minus that capability, which is great because you're always guaranteed an image to be scanned directly to your application. And the other nice thing I think is important is, when you move from maybe one manufacturer to the next or one model to the next or one version of the capture software to the next, the user experience might change. The TWAIN driver might change. The look and feel might change. The beauty of this is that you can build that user interface any way you like, and you can make it as complex or as simple as possible because you have full control over that entire experience. So if you buy a scanner today, your user interface will be the same when you refresh that scanner 3, 5, maybe 7 years down the road. And all you're doing is plugging in a new scanner without having to tweak or reconfigure anything, because the TWAIN Direct standard is basically an open standard that is easily interpretable and manages with all your documents. Your document scanners. So what I'm going to show you now is kind of just a very simple illustration of what this looks like with, a cloud application with TWAIN Direct and your TWAIN Direct enabled scanners or USB-based scanners with a sidecar or a bridge connected to a PC, right? So you've got multiple users, could be in multiple locations, your TWAIN Direct server sitting in the cloud, your ECM application or your or other workflow applications in the cloud. And what you're going to basically do is open up your browser, and you're going to be presented, let's say, with a folder structure full of where you keep core documents. And now what you're going to have within the browser window, not within the browser application, but within the browser's web page, you're going to have a scan button. What that scan button is going to allow you to do is trigger a pop-up. which comes through the browser, through the application. And at this point, once your devices are authenticated to the TWAIN Direct server, you're actually able to browse and identify models in particular that are registered in your organization. So, first thing you do is you select your scanner. Now, of course, you can mask that and only have one scanner show up to one location or per user. It really all depends on how it's set up, but you have that flexibility, which is nice. We're going to sit here and we're going to select our device. You're going to be presented with could be more complex or very simple. For this demonstration here, or for this demo, it's really a very simple, paper source, size of your document, let's say. It could be automatic, whether it's color, monochrome, your resolution, maybe some brightness and contrast. This is a very simplified interface, and this is just a sample app that was created by Panasonic during our development. But it's great for demonstrations because it can show how easy or difficult, not difficult, how complex you want to offer the capabilities to individual users. You might want to restrict it down or open up more settings. You're going to hit your scan button, and now you're going to come back into your window where your folders are, and now your document's going to be populated directly into here, right? So there's no capture application. There was no software you installed on a PC. This could be done right here. This could be maybe an Apple device. This could be an iPad or an Android device. It really doesn't matter because all you're doing is browsing the URL to the application. So that covers the portion there. Now, I know you probably might have a lot more technical questions on how it operates. And like I said, Mark is with us today, and he'll be able to answer any question you have on that. And of course, if you want to learn more or see how we can assist you from the TWAIN working group, you can visit us on the web at twaindirect.org, or you can actually contact Erin directly. She can help put you in contact with us or answer any questions through the board. So this concludes my portion of the presentation. And now I'm going to hand it off to Kevin.
Certainly. Thanks, Joe. Excellent presentation on TWAIN Direct. I just want to say I'm very grateful for the AIIM Florida chapter for hosting this particular presentation today. So P3ID is both a member and an advocate of both groups, the AIIM community as well as the TWAIN working group. So we're a big advocate of education through AIIM, and then the technology that the TWAIN working group is developing. So thanks, Craig, and the AIIM Florida chapter.
Welcome, and thanks to our panel, Kevin. We'll talk a little bit about AIIM Florida and the TWAIN working group here after the panel.
Okay, so I'll just talk for a minute on the contribution of P3 to the TWAIN Direct project. So as Joe just mentioned, and as Mark will elaborate, TWAIN Direct itself is a technology, and basically we look at it as a connector technology, which is exactly like Joe described. It's a universal scanner, web service scanner driver that connects almost any scanning device to a software application. So the traditional scanning software was traditionally behind a firewall on a corporate network, where the PC was the gateway to the network. So the PC itself had an IP address. But in this new kind of architecture with mobile devices and always on internet connected IP enabled devices, obviously these scanning devices do have IP addresses and they are always on the network. So this brings into play much different kind of considerations. So as a software developer, or even a scanner manufacturer or a corporate entity developing a software application, you have a lot of things to consider when you're developing a software application. So you go to the TWAIN working group and you get the TWAIN Direct, you download the TWAIN Direct source code, and you can start developing your application. But you're going to need a lot of other tools. You're going to need most likely a capture tool, like an OCR toolkit to do your document recognition. You might need a workflow toolkit or some kind of tools. You're going to need maybe an encryption kind of toolkit. But one of the most important things that we see as a very first logical step is the authentication to your software application. Because again, the cell phone doesn't know your identity. So you have to log on so it knows who you are, so they can take your scanned documents and put it somewhere. So it's not even security, it's just about identity, number one. So it knows who you are, so it could do something with your scanned documents. But secondly, security, because you know, you don't want everybody just logging into your scan application. So what P3 has contributed to the TWAIN working group is our knowledge around enterprise authentication. So specifically around LDAP and Active Directory authentication. And for those of you that might not be familiar with Active Directory or LDAP, it's basically a directory of your usernames and your passwords. So just like the TWAIN Direct cloud server is a centralized workflow for scanners and connecting the scanners, your Active Directory or LDAP is a centralized place where you keep all your identities and your usernames and your passwords. So we have expertise on concepts of zero trust and forward secrecy. So what we've done recently, and I encourage everybody to go to the twaindirect.org website and download a new white paper that we put out a month or two ago on this concept of enterprise authentication. So you can provide an identity, you can provide secure authentication, you can do things like provide single sign-on, so that when you log into your PC in the morning, then your web application, your TWAIN Direct compatible web application is also logged in this as a single sign-on, and your Salesforce and your QuickBooks, through one login, through one single sign-on, you can log on to a variety of different services. So in addition to identity, in addition to the secure authentication, you can provide this ability to do single sign-on. So there's a lot of advantages to it. It's a very complicated integration, and it's not so simple. So basically our contribution to the TWAIN working group that we will be publishing future documents is basically how to configure Active Directories and LDAPs, and how you can integrate easily with enterprise authentication technologies, so that you don't have to start from scratch. You don't have to become an expert on these things. We will give you the quick and down and dirty, let's get started quick. Here's some test tools, here's some development tools where you can actually build your TWAIN Direct compatible software application with these enterprise authentication tools. So again, this white paper is available at the website, and I encourage everybody to go get it, and I'll be happy to answer questions a little bit later. Craig, I'll turn it back to you. You're on mute, Craig.
Greg, you're still on mute.
Craig, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that. So let's hear a few words from Mark McLaughlin with regards to what Kevin and Joe referred to, and then we'll move to questions that have been submitted to us. Mark?
Okay, sure. We have, excuse me, we have online documentation for TWAIN Direct. We have, as has been mentioned, sample code for TWAIN Direct. The goal is to allow people to hit the ground running to try to experience a TWAIN Direct system. So it's fairly straightforward to just download the sample code and get something up and running that you can work with and look at and learn a little bit more about it. And it can be done with some existing scanners too, if you want to be able to use something we call the bridge. We can talk more about that later if anybody's interested. And yeah, as Kevin's pointed out, security is an important aspect of it. We have the ability to encrypt images. We have encryption in transit using HTTPS. The encryption for images is being done using PDF 2.0 standard, which is what we have referenced inside of the PDFR. And as Joe had alluded to, we really do want to emphasize success. The target audience was the application writers. We wanted to make life as simple and straightforward for them as possible, with the theory that that would promote a good user experience. And so success is emphasized. If you make an attempt to scan, and if it's at all possible to get the image, it will get it for you.
Thank you,
I'll
Mark.
stop there.
Well, let's follow with you with a question. And realizing that with the TWAIN working group and around TWAIN Direct and the TWAIN Bridge, it's all about adoption and recruitment for membership and involvement. But the question that we have here is, how does one get started on TWAIN Direct development? What are the basic starting points and tools?
So I think the first thing I would recommend is if you go to twaindirect.org specification, you'll find there the documentation for it. And the topmost item is the TWAIN Direct User's Guide. TWAIN Direct User's Guide is a explanation of what TWAIN Direct is, what its benefits are going to be, what its goals are going to be. I would read that document through. The rest of the content is basically reference material. You would just look at that on an as-you-need basis. But reading and understanding the user's guide is a pretty good first step. And then, as I mentioned, in concert with that, pulling in the sample code with the bridge. So in this particular instance, what you would have is there's a sample application, there's a bridge, and then I would use the sample TWAIN data source. What this does is it allows you to set up on a single PC an environment that allows you to experiment with and experience what TWAIN Direct looks like. Something that could probably be set up, in an hour or so. And that gives you a chance just to get your feet wet and see what things look like. And if you're an application writer, then you can start to focus in on what the application side of it is. We have extensive logging capabilities that allow one to see exactly what the RESTful commands are that are going back and forth. And so I would typically do that, is I would take a look at those logs, and then I would use the logs to reference back to the reference documentation. And that should be a pretty quick way to build up an understanding of what's going on and how it's all working. And then, of course, there's always the forum. So if there's questions, you can contact us at the forum, and more than happy to try to explain stuff.
Yeah, and I think right there, you answered another question that we have is about the tools that are available from TWAIN Working Group to assist in developing and learning. Anything further that you would like to add that might address that question a bit, Mark?
So we have sample code for the TWAIN Direct. We have sample code for PDF raster. That may be interesting to anybody who's actually working on the scanner side of things. That PDF raster code was designed to actually be able to work in firmware. So if somebody wants to embed it in their scanner, that shouldn't be too much of a problem. The code is all written in C#. The reason that was done is because it allowed us to run this on the various platforms fairly easily. A serious attempt was made to not take advantage of all the C# features. So if somebody wants to transcribe that code to another language like C++, that shouldn't be too big a deal.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Mark.
Hey, Chris, can I just make a comment about the value of TWAIN Direct? Because Joe mentioned this PC-less type architecture as a bullet point, but in a former life, I was an IT administrator, and what I hated was going to each individual desktop and having separate configurations on each desktop for email and for scanning and different driver settings and all this. So PC-less is a big deal, right? But a lot of people can't wrap their heads around it unless they've experienced that pain. So maybe the individual user doesn't care, but somebody in IT does care, or the business managers do care that that they don't have to deal with a PC where people are downloading malware and playing games and on Amazon shopping, right? It's a pure dedicated PC-less device. So the scanner has a purpose, and this whole idea that TWAIN Direct can offer a PC-less solution is really valuable from productivity standpoint, but also consistency and also cost. You remove the cost of a PC and a software application. So I think that's a really big deal that we kind of glance over, but it's a big deal in the industry. And I just wanted to mention that.
I think I'd like to jump in also and point out that one of the main components for how it is that you configure the scanner, tell the scanner you want to do stuff, is through a what we call a task. It's a JSON data structure. It's human readable. It's something you can go in and edit by hand or generate a program. Also, one of members of the working group, Dynamsoft, has produced an online system that allows you to generate tasks and also to validate the tasks are correct. So I just wanted to include that too.
Yeah, and thank you very much for that, Mark, because, and I have to say, first of all, Kevin shared out a document in the chat, so feel free to retrieve that. For those, who may not know, I wear two hats here as president of the AIIM Florida chapter, but also chair of the marketing committee for the TWAIN working group. So what we want to make sure that you do in both accounts is reach out and, go on the TWAIN.org website and TWAINdirect.org and, download information, and there's plenty of helpful information there. Kevin, not only, and thank you for sharing the link on the chat there, but there's also, particular to those who know that P3ID Technologies is an ISV integrator. As TWAIN Working Group, our goal also is for adoption. What are some general advantages that you'd like to point out that ISVs would employ and deploy with regards to TWAIN Direct?
Yeah, that's a good question, Craig. So first of all, focus on your application. Don't rebuild, don't reinvent the wheel. So there's technologies available. There's great tools available to utilize that, even though enterprise authentication might sound complicated, you can get it very affordable. The tools are easy to integrate. So don't be scared about it. So do your research. You work with TWAIN Working Group, ask questions, but these technologies are available. So do not reinvent the wheel. Focus on your core competence. As a software developer, ease of use is one of the key things. Make it easy, right? Oftentimes, developers and technology companies get wrapped around the axle and love their technology too much and put too many buttons, too many drop downs, too many interfaces, too many clicks to do something. Users want pure simplicity. So make things easy. Even reduce clicks using voice control, maybe, say, hey, I want to scan my document to Mark and Joe, and I want to make sure that, the PII data is redacted. Use voice, in the future. So be creative, research your tools. Don't reinvent the wheel, but think outside the box. Think radically different. A lot of these scanners are coming with really small screens. And when I say, okay, when you want to scan a document, how are you going to preview it, right? You can't preview it on these scanners with the real small screens. So the future of the applications, this has to be the interface, the mobile phone or a PC next to the system that has an interface to preview the images. So there's obvious trends coming in the industry. And if ISVs are creative, they could be ahead of this curve for mass adoption, because it's my prediction that these scanners will be driven by mobile devices. You will authenticate through the mobile device. You will preview the images on the mobile device. You will pick your destinations on the mobile device. So that's the future. So each person on this call has an opportunity to develop the future of scanning and document capture. So really be creative. And TWAIN Direct gives a great ability to do mobile, do web, connect web services, connect other cloud-based systems. So be creative.
Well said. Thank you, Kevin. So as per the my mentions earlier, and Joe mentioned that he's with Panasonic, Mark with Kodak Alaris, but directing this question to Joe, that specifically Panasonic as a scanner manufacturer, we want to know the benefits that companies like, in hardware manufacturing in adopting TWAIN Direct, and do you feel, and how do you feel, of course, that TWAIN Direct differentiates you and Panasonic from the others?
So, so for document scanners specifically, the nice thing about TWAIN Direct is that you start working on what the quality of your product is. You're no longer worried about whether or not a driver is going to have a hiccup with an application on the road. I would say probably about 90% of most scanner issues, prior to a sale, is all about testing, certifying, making sure it works with the application. In some cases, even just trying to get through the nomenclature of a feature. One manufacturer's TWAIN driver can have the same feature worded differently. And if you're going from one device to the next, or one brand to the next in an environment, the user might not know what that feature is. And that takes time. I think TWAIN Direct will actually help reduce the sales cycle between device purchases. It also alleviates the need to supporting multiple device drivers. If you're a company who just doesn't really care who the brand is and they're shopping on whoever's got the best price in the market today, now you've got to support different drivers. And some people don't, some businesses probably look at it going, hey, it's a scanner, just buy whatever is on sale. And then they get it, they unbox it, and all of a sudden that's when a hiccup occurs. It could be something simple in the TWAIN driver, of how it communicates with the application itself. Kind of like, really think about like a print driver sometimes, right? Have you ever seen a print driver, right? It could be the print driver who owns the responsibility of driving, or it's the application who overrides the driver. Then you get a conflict, not necessarily a conflict, but it's all a matter of a dogfight of who owns which. So, TWAIN drivers essentially are in the same boat. So when you run into a small issue like that, it can be very inconvenient. A lot of times it's a very simple fix. Sometimes, depending on how complex the application is, or if it's a custom application, that can get even more complex. And everybody has a different way of interpreting the TWAIN drivers. Every manufacturer words things differently. Every manufacturer, codes it a little bit differently. The specification has come, and however, everything's open to interpretation. With TWAIN Direct, you really don't have that issue necessarily anymore, because now you're not looking at anything that's device specific when it comes to the interface between the hardware and the software. Having it embedded in the hardware is great because it's a simple installation, and if you're deploying thousands of scanner in an organization, that's time consuming. If you're an IT person and you got to sit there and deploy it, granted you can deploy it via a script and whatnot, but it's all a matter of anything can go wrong between when you initiate that script to install, when they plug it in, and anything go wrong in that process. The nice thing about TWAIN Direct, especially if the device is already wired to the network, there's no PC, there's no installation. And once you've trained your user on how to use the application, or when you're scanning whatever settings, it doesn't matter from one brand to the next or what that experience is or isn't. You can make it, like I said, as dummy proof as possible, where all you have is a scan button, and behind the scenes, your application already knows it's, let's say, 300 DPI in duplex. Or you can offer the flexibility of giving full control to each individual users. It really all depends on your business application and your workflow. But I think ease from a manufacturer is definitely eliminating that time period of giving a customer a scanner, making sure they test it. And that's an inconvenience to a customer or a soft partner as well, right? They've got to take time out of their day to plug in what is essentially a commodity product into their system and make sure something down the road doesn't crap out, or some setting doesn't work right, or the image quality is a little off. These are all the biggest headaches between the software and the manufacturer that you have when it comes to document scanning. In TWAIN Direct, you've essentially eliminated that.
Excellent, Joe. Another question here, and Kevin, you mentioned some of the web service aspects. Can you expound on that a little more about TWAIN Direct as a web service and with always on network and internet connectivity?
Yeah. So as a TWAIN Classic is traditionally behind the firewall, PC attached, but TWAIN Direct again is an always on network connected. So almost every single major cloud system, Box and Salesforce and QuickBooks and all these systems, they're all what's called SAML 2.0 compliant. And that basically means that all these cloud services can consume an identity that's provided to the service. So Salesforce doesn't know your username and password, and QuickBooks doesn't know, and all these applications don't know your username and password. You are providing that. So there's this whole gigantic ecosystem of cloud services that are easy to connect to if you use an identity provider. So that's exactly what we're advocating, is that you don't need to build a specific connector to this system and this system and this system. If you use a standard such as SAML 2.0 and an IDP. So there's an IDP and a SAML. So this is the way that you can claim interoperability with probably tens of thousands of, or millions of applications by default, just by being a SAML 2.0 compliant application. So that's the promise of what you can do with TWAIN Direct, is that by default, if you're an ISV developing an application, you could say, man, I'm SAML 2.0 compliant. I have an identity provider that I work with. Bam, you know what? I can almost guarantee compatibility. Or you can be a provider that doesn't embrace standards like SAML 2.0. And then every time they ask you, hey, are you compatible with DocuWare? Are you compatible with this system? Are you compatible with this system? And then you say, oh, I have to go check, right? So this whole idea of interoperability is huge because, you know what, you can provide connectivity, and through understanding an IDP and a SAML, then you can integrate with other systems very easily. You don't need their cooperation. Like, I don't need to go to Salesforce and get their help to integrate my application with them. They consume my identity, then I can scan directly into Salesforce, put my metadata in Salesforce, put my images in Salesforce without their cooperation at all, because they support SAML 2.0. So same thing with the TWAIN Cloud. If you, and that's the whole idea of the TWAIN Working Group, right? Establishing standards, embracing standards. So that's the whole idea of being very valuable from an interoperability standpoint.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kevin. And at this point of the presentation, please feel free to unmute your phone and ask any questions you might have for our panel in a audio manner. Anyone that would like to start? If not, while you're formulating your questions, I'd like to throw it back to Joe here real quick. And Joe, as overall chair of the board and chairman of the board and CEO of the TWAIN Working Group, Joe, we have a lot of people here on the webinar today that maybe first are learning about TWAIN Direct and even about the TWAIN Working Group. There are also familiar names and faces that know their way around TWAIN to somewhat. But I'd like you to extol a bit on the virtues and benefits of membership. And if you would, you know, as our goals are, as I mentioned earlier, adoption and recruitment, give them your 3 top reasons why they should reach out to Aaron or myself today with regards to membership.
So the key points of being part of the board, one is that if you're an OEM or even a software vendor, the beauty of that is you've all maybe developed your TWAIN application today. You know, if you're using any software and you're acquiring images, you're using either TWAIN or ISIS, and chances are you're using TWAIN. Apologize for the background noise. You're using TWAIN today. You know, most likely. You know, it's an open standard. It's open source. It's been around since the dawn of time, as far as I can remember. There's a TWAIN driver. Being part of that, being part of the board, or even as a member, is one, you get this inside look and inside scoop of everything that's going on in terms of any technical issues. If you're a software developer from an OEM, you've got the input and the influence to help decide what are the best practices, right? It's an open forum. Everybody can provide feedback. Everybody builds things a little differently. What we might develop may not necessarily be the best way to develop. And having more board members, having more associate members within the TWAIN working group allows us to expand that information, right? It's powered by numbers. So really, if you want to influence, or if you feel there's a way certain things can be done better or more efficiently, and maybe we're not necessarily seeing it, being part of the group allows you to voice that. You get that information in. We're a combination of some of the sharpest minds in the industry in terms of how the drivers are developed. Mark's been with us, I don't know, 25 years now. He is a source of knowledge like anything I've ever seen in my life when it comes to TWAIN drivers. But you know what? There could be something small that can easily be thought of outside of us, that we're not seeing it. And that's where we want the feedback. We want people to be involved. You could shape the future of it. Now we're talking about TWAIN, and TWAIN Direct the same way. Everybody has a unique perspective on how they're seeing their customers do business every day. And maybe there is a feature, a function, capability that allows us to gain that feedback and incorporate that. Just because TWAIN Direct has been developed and it's out there now, doesn't mean we don't continue on evolving that specification. We're building in more features. We're streamlining. Kevin's doing a great job at, working on the security aspect of what TWAIN Direct is particularly as it relates to the cloud. This is just stuff that continues to evolve and evolve. Even from a hardware manufacturer, this is your ability to, say, hey, this is a more efficient way, or, this is maybe not working for us. Are there other options? So if you're part of that board, you're essentially helping shape the future of what the technology is, whether it's the TWAIN Classic or the TWAIN Direct, or somewhere down the road, some new technology that gets developed. But we're here to basically provide a nice royalty-free open source driver for applications or PCs, obviously if it's a traditional TWAIN driver, to acquire images. Otherwise, your other option is you're paying royalties and licenses from somebody else, which I won't mention. But keeping it free, keeping it open source, and we need people to provide feedback and input.
Fantastic, thank you, Joe. Mark, would you like to, Joe just mentioned you've been around this a long time. How do you see it from your point of view and on the chairing the technical committee for TWAIN working group?
The goal of the TWAIN working group has always been to try to make it as easy as possible for people to capture their images from scanners. And TWAIN Direct really pushes that idea pretty much as far as we can imagine at this point. Again, it's designed to be as simple to use as possible. You should be able to walk up to your device, say, I want to capture images in such and such a way, and you get them. You're on your way. However, that said, we're always looking for feedback. I'd also like to point out that a standards group is never an innovation group. The specification has been put together in such a way that an individual vendor can add their own custom behavior, and customers can seamlessly access that and still not lose the benefit of being able to have their application talk to other scanners that don't have that feature. The theory has always been that the standard expands when we have two scanner vendors who want to have the same feature. Then it's time to talk about having a standard way of doing that. I think that's about it.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark. And Kevin, back to you. Joe mentioned around security, cybersecurity, and we didn't really touch on that much here in the panel and the webinar. Would you like to expound a little bit more about how that's important with TWAIN Direct a little bit? And I know P3 ID is doing a lot around that too.
Yeah, it's almost like you teed me up for that. We didn't even plan this. So yeah, so a lesson learned from the real world experience is that there, if you build a software application or use a provider, there's three key things that are security risks. If they own your usernames, well, if they own the storage first, and they own the usernames and passwords, and they own your encryption, then that's a point of failure. You do not want to have one provider that owns all three things: storage, encryption, and usernames and passwords. So in my experience, most companies want to control either their encryption, so they manage their own encryption keys, and or they manage their own identities. So I see this a lot, is that people want to use TWAIN Direct, they want to use the cloud services, but they want to control encryption and identity. So encryption aside, let's talk about control of identities. So many customers that we talk to, they say, we still want to control, we want to manage our Active Directory. We want to manage our LDAP server, so that if we resend the credentials of somebody, if they leave the company or we add somebody, we are in control of that. But the cloud service provider is in control of everything else, maintaining the network, the storage. They could do all those kind of things. But the one key piece of an identity and authentication is in our control. So that's a major trend that I see, especially with cloud service and cybersecurity, is that you do not want one provider to have all your stuff. So Microsoft has a version of Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, but again, you're giving all control to Microsoft. Even the giant like Microsoft has the potential to be hacked. So Microsoft owns your storage in Azure, your identities in Azure, and your encryption in Azure. So they're one single point of failure. You do not want that to happen. So if you can provide and control at least your identities, that's relatively simple. That's a major trend that I see in cybersecurity. And that's the key first thing to start with, because you have to authenticate so it knows who you are. Then it has to, provide this level of security. So that's the one thing I want to share with the group, is start with identity and authentication first.
Thank you. Excellent. Anyone with questions from the audience before we wrap up?
Hi from GC. Hello. Thank you for the presentation. What you said about TWAIN Direct, that makes a lot of sense. And also we like technologies like JSON RESTful APIs. However, we are not a scanner manufacturer. We are not an ISV. Our business for the past 25 years was to develop TWAIN drivers for OEMs. So with TWAIN Direct, it seems that our business is no longer required. So my question to you is, do you see a future for TWAIN Direct? Sorry, a future for TWAIN Classic, or is it for us the time to look into other directions to develop our business? Because what we have done in the past, development of TWAIN drivers, is no longer required.
I can jump in on that one real quick. Just to let you know, we are currently actively working on the TWAIN 2.5 specification. So current one out there is TWAIN 2.4. I would expect that people who have USB scanners, who have an investment in existing applications, they're going to have that for a while. So our intention is to continue to maintain and promote TWAIN 2.5 and TWAIN Classic, and use that as a springboard in some cases to move new features into TWAIN Direct. So for instance, we're currently working on image addressing. And once we have image addressing well understood, we will have that in TWAIN Direct as well. Hopefully that answers your question from my part. I know Kevin was going to offer something too.
Thank you, Mark.
And Kai, I would say that TWAIN Classic is not going away. I'd say, just like Mark mentioned, there's not many hardware devices that support TWAIN Direct right now. And it's going to be a while before there's masses of hardware devices that support TWAIN Direct natively. So TWAIN Classic plus TWAIN Bridge is going to be a solution for the next couple of years, in my opinion. So I don't think TWAIN Classic's going away. I still think there's an opportunity, and there's a lot of interest in TWAIN Direct. but a lot of people kind of don't know how to put it together. So I think there's more opportunity than you might think.
Thank you, Kevin.
And Mark, I think you were going to add something as well.
I would say one thing is, the TWAIN Classic is not going anywhere anytime soon. However, I would encourage expanding, to other areas. TWAIN Classic will be around for a while, but maybe not forever. Or maybe it really all depends on how businesses really transform over the next, 5 to 10 years. But getting into API or RESTful API support might be another area, which makes sense because now you're expanding your capabilities. Obviously, I can't tell you how to run your business, but it's always good to diversify. Especially in this day and age where technology is changing daily, monthly, annually. Especially during this whole COVID pandemic, a lot of new technologies and capabilities have emerged much sooner, particularly in collaboration technologies, just like Zoom and stuff like that. These technologies propelled, and anything can change from one year to the next. So I always recommend diversification is never a bad thing.
Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you. Any final questions from attendees? All right. Well, with that, I know that there are quite a few folks from different parts of the world, and getting later on into some of your afternoons and early evenings. And we do wish to thank you. I'd also like to recognize Aaron Dempsey, who is the marketing director and head for TWAIN Working Group. And Aaron, thank you very much. Without you, we could not make this possible. And thank you so very much. And
thank you, Craig.
And Jeff, thank you for the applause for Aaron there, and Kevin. And also, I'd like to recognize we have on from the AIM Florida board, Alex Kelly. Alex directs our social media, and Melissa Detterer is advisor director on the AIM Florida board. A lot of you may even recognize Melissa from her activities with ARMA in the Northeast prior to making the move to cold Florida here, which it is somewhat today. So with that, I want you to please stay tuned because the TWAIN Working Group, we will continue with our webinar series, and this will be quarterly. This is just the start for both TWAIN Working Group and AIM Florida. So we're planning for another TWAIN webinar in March. So definitely look at the emails that Aaron is sending out, and any announcements that I might make on LinkedIn or other vehicles. And then AIM Florida, this is part of our educational series. It's a monthly series. We strive for the third Thursday of every month. In February, we'll be attacking all things robotic process automation. And so definitely, and if you think robotic process automation is still a buzzword, yeah, be there. So with that, we thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you in March for TWAIN and in February for the continued AIM Florida series. So follow us on social media. We're both organizations are on LinkedIn. If you're part of the AIM community forum, definitely follow us there as well, and look for our emails. If you would like a copy or the download of the recording of today's webinar, feel free to reach out to Aaron Dempsey at twain.org, or reach out to info@aimfl.org, AIIMFL.org, for the Association for Intelligent Information Management. With that, I thank our panel. Great presentation today. And if there are any questions that anyone has, please feel free to send us email, and we'll make sure that we get an answer back to you. So with that, I thank everyone and wish you a very good day and a great rest of your week. Thank you now.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, everyone. Really
Thanks,
appreciate
Joe.
you joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day.
Yep. Take
Bye
care.
now.
Bye bye.
Thanks, everyone.